Hi, my name is Monica Kretschmer, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Universal Women's Network, Women of Inspiration Awards, and this is the Women of Inspiration podcast, where we speak with women who lead, inspire, and motivate. Today on the Women of Inspiration podcast, we're joined by Loretta Soffe, a bold voice changing one of the most persistent myths in our culture that we can have it all. Loretta built a high-powered career in fashion, leading at the executive level for global brands while raising her three kids and flipping the traditional parenting script with her husband. Her journey hasn't been without challenges, including being fired at the height of her career, a moment that became a defining point rather than a breaking point. Now, as an executive coach, speaker, and new author of her new book, Balance is Bullshit, Loretta is on a mission to help high achievers ditch the unrealistic expectations and find alignment that actually works. Her book blends memoir with practical tools for cutting through the noise, living by clear values, and redefining success on your own terms. So get ready to be inspired and welcome Loretta to the Woman of Inspiration podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you.
Well, it is long overdue. And, in the green room, it was just a little blast from the past. We actually met, my son is now 19. He was 5 when I had met you and your husband and your three kids. And it was in Cabo San Lucas. And fast forward all these many years, so much of life has, happened for both of us. So, what I'd love to start the podcast off with, Loretta, is we see where you are now is launching your new book, and I can't wait to dive into that because, and I got to tell you, I love the name Balance is Bullshit. I say that over and over again. So great title. But let's start with your story. I always ask this question, what did you dream of, as a 12-year-old? Like, what did you want to be when you grew up? And how has that journey unfolded for you?
Well, you'll learn more about this in my book. Swimming had a huge impact on my childhood. And when I was 12, I dreamed of going to the Olympics. And I got close enough. I went to the Olympic trials in 1984. Didn't make the team, but had that experience. But beyond that, I didn't really have dreams. I guess I just was kind of tackling what was right in front of me. My parents are Irish immigrants, they're both passed. And from them, I just learned kind of to dig deep every single day and tap into grit, resilience, discipline, and hard work. So I'd be lying if I said I wanted to be an executive in fashion. I didn't at all. The career, 25 years at Nordstrom in fashion, happened entirely by accident. When I graduated from college, I had to get a job. I was the youngest of five, and my dad made it really clear that I was off the payroll. I had to actually just make my own money. So I started as a cashier at Nordstrom. I lived in the storage room of my sister's apartment in Northern California, and she would drive me to work, teach me how to use the register on the way there. And then I kind of fell in love with the business of retailing. So I went from cashier to a salesperson to getting out of that storage room and saving enough money to have an apartment with one of my best friends. And then from there, I just progressed. At Nordstrom, we call it down the pyramid. You're working your way down closer, actually, to the executives, further from the customer. So over the course of 25 years, I went from cashier to salesperson to manager to buyer. And ultimately, I actually ended with the largest job in the company at that time for anybody whose name wasn't Nordstrom. I managed a $2 billion P&L. And then, as you mentioned, somewhat out of the clear blue sky at the height of my career, I was fired.
Wow. You know, my next question was for you, at the defining moment that shaped you as a leader. Would you say that this was one of those defining moments at the top of your game, and then all of a sudden kind of just hit with this, like all of a sudden out of the blue?
Yeah, it really was. In fact, hearing you say that, I actually still get chills. And I'd say it was a defining moment for a number of reasons. when you're not in control of big decisions, they're harder to cope with. And this was one of those. I didn't have a say. We hardly had a conversation. In 25 years, everything evaporated in the course of 2.5 minutes. Um, and that's a defining moment because I think at that time, in that extreme situation, you have a choice, and that choice of how to react, either to get angry, defend, fight back, or take a deep breath and accept it with grace and humility and courage that something else must be in store. I think that's a defining moment that is built upon for all the years of leadership. There was so many times when I was leading people and I was the one that had to deliver that message. I had to take people out of their jobs, or I had to just make tough choices and show to my team, this is how we conduct ourselves, this is how we cope, and this is how we really shine as leaders. A leader isn't just, you know, winning awards and doing great things. It's really how you respond in adversity. So I'd say it was a defining moment in my life because all of a sudden, everything I had known as an adult was gone, evaporated. And then that was when I thought, okay, I can respond with grace and hold my head high as my parents raised me and taught me. And then you know what? I can look out the window and reinvent myself, which is exactly what I did.
And so I want to talk about, that journey, and it has a lot to do with, I believe, and you're going to tell the story about writing the book. But along your journey, we talk about the male support hers. Support her is really amplifying the men that are champions for women. So
Mhm.
who in this world, and I already know the answer to this, but I just want you to talk about this, who have been your biggest support hers, and why must we involve men to that conversation, knowing that you're going to need that safety net of your family, to help you through this next phase.
Yeah, it's so important to understand you can't do it alone. You can be a world champion athlete, a scholar, an intellect, a fashion model. You'll never get it done if you do it on your own. So that's just the green space. The the people in my life, we got to start with my father, who took a huge risk as an immigrant, moved away from Ireland with my mom, 4 kids, me on the way, 5 suitcases, to pursue the American dream and leave a massive extended family and safety net in Ireland. Um, so starting with my dad, who showed me hard work, risk taking, discipline, and faith. And then I'd say next is my brother, who, as the oldest, 12 years older than me, he was the oldest, I was the youngest, raised me in a lot of ways. He took care of me because with 5 kids, there's no way a mother can do it all. And then my husband, Sam, who you've met,
Mhm.
I say to women all the time, the most important decision you will ever make in your life is who to spend your life with. And we got married later. I was 32, he was 31. We had met when we were 15 in high school, so we knew each other. But we both had our fair share of relationships in our 20s. And honestly, I dodged a lot of bullets. Great guys, but not the kind of guy that would have supported my career, my life, my family, and then now our family. And for Sam to have raised his hand when I was pregnant with our first baby and say, I'll stay home, I'll take care of the baby. I was like, oh my God, you will? I never even thought of it. We were both kind of challenged with what are we going to do when we have a baby? And I don't think either of us ever imagined he would stay home. I wasn't sure if I would. I loved my job. I was doing super well, but we both agreed we didn't want a nanny raising our kids. And so at that moment, out of the clear blue, he said, you know what? I'll do it. He thought he was going to do it for a year. It ended up 12 years. And as you'll discover in my book, he writes a chapter that really kind of helps you understand what it was like psychologically, socially, personally for him to give up his career as a lawyer and stay home. But I think even more interesting is our kids wrote a chapter. And so they share their perspective of what it was like to have their dad be the primary caregiver and how it shaped them in their lives, in how they perceive relationships, how they perceive the roles of men and women. It's, I think that's going to be really kind of interesting, eye opening, and fun for readers. So, long answer, my dad was my first huge supporter. And I was lucky as the youngest of five to get so much time with him, um, taking me to swim meets and whatnot. My brother has always been my biggest cheerleader. And then I wouldn't be here with any of what's happened if it wasn't for Sam.
Beautiful. And, let's just recap here. You built a high-powered career, you raised three kids, and then you flipped the traditional parenting script with your husband Sam.
Mhm.
Thank goodness for him saying, I'll do it.
Uh-huh.
And can't wait to dive into that chapter and talk a little bit more about that. But Loretta, you did it at a time when we weren't even talking about
No.
who might assume those roles and responsibilities.
Mhm.
So, what are some of those biggest myths that you still hear about having it all?
Oh my gosh. Well, I swear one of the main impetus for me to write this book was sitting at my dinner table with two couples that are right in the wheelhouse of my target, almost 30, barely 30, high-powered jobs in tech. They look like they have it all. And they both said at different times throughout a dinner, I don't think I'm going to have time to have kids. I just don't know if it's going to work out. I don't know if I can fit it in. And I literally was like, stop. You guys, you can do it all. I promise. You can do it.
Mm.
Career ambition and family, motherhood are not mutually exclusive, but you actually have to have your values in place. You have to have clear priorities of what's important and then weed out the stuff that's not. And then you have to have a really strong partnership and support system. And that support system doesn't have to be in-laws up the street like I'm lucky to have. It can be friends, it can be coworkers, it can be people at your church, it can be your neighbors. It can be anybody, but you have to be humble enough to understand you can't do it alone, but you can do it. And I think that's the biggest myth is that these two things are mutually exclusive. Um, they're not. And you know what? It's not just career ambition and motherhood. You can also take care of yourself. You don't have to lose yourself in the process to both of those things. I see that all the time as well.
Mm.
I'm burned out taking care of my kids. I'm burned out, leading my team or doing my job. I haven't worked out in years. I don't have time for myself. I haven't read a book. I can't see friends. Well, let's back it up and I can help you get a handle on this. It's all possible.
So, you talk about living with clear values and aligned priority. And, when life fails and it gets messy and overwhelming, like as you just talk about, you're like, okay, the
Mhm.
wheels are coming off the bus. How do you think that people can cut through the noise and figure out what truly matters for themselves, for their family, for their relationship or careers?
I think it is a process. So when I'm working with people, I take them through a process, but just to kind of describe, it's really getting people to step back, to really zoom out from the day to day and imagine 5 years out. Let's just say, even say 2 years out, 3 years out. What does success look like personally, professionally, intellectually, spiritually, recreationally? What are some of those things that are important to you? And if you had, your tombstone, your legacy, your memorial, what do you want people to say about you? Like you were really good at your job or you were these other things. And so I think it's not, I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm helping people zoom out to kind of reverse engineer what they want life to be like. Because I think when you're in it and you project out, it's really hard and you can almost only see 3, 6, 12 months out if you're lucky. But if you stop, just like if you were building a business, building a personal brand, building a consumer brand, and you go, you know what? In 5 years, I am going to be on vacation in Sun Valley celebrating with my team. We're going to have a lunch and toast each other because we hit a mile marker, a volume goal, some success metric. And how we hit that success metric is because of ABC. It's the same thing in your personal life. And so I think when people can kind of project out, work backwards, and then align values and priorities, it works. It works. And if it's fitness, if it's relationships, if it's you know, growing spiritually, growing your career, any of those things have tangible um, tactics that need to go along with it. That's the starting point.
So, you know, there's a lot of talk about women right now in this stage of life, and you and I are both in that same bucket for perimenopause, menopause, and
Hmm.
that post-menopause. And there's a lot of talking about, like this is not the end of our story. This is just the beginning of our story.
Yeah.
And I am all about, that whole world of reinvention and transformation. And I think it's completely possible to do that. So, when you had your defining moment, you were still, your kids were still young, you were at the height of your career. I think there's a couple different times in a woman's life where we have that ability to really change who we are and what we want, and we can do that at any stage of the game. So maybe you can shine a little bit of light into this next stage with being an author now. I mean, executive coach,
Hmm.
ex executive coach, and now stepping into a role where you're an author, which is another completely new
Hmm.
territory to you. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that decision to write the book.
Yes. And let me tell you, it's a steep learning curve, which actually has been really a fun part of this. I've never shied away from challenge. And so when I decided to do this, my husband and kids were really encouraging, but they were also like, wait, you're going to do this? And then I had so many questions along the way, like, what do you even do? How does that work? And I was like, I don't know. I'm literally just figuring it out every single day. And I actually am so lucky that I found an incredible editor that I work with. Um, but for me, it's almost like I'm kind of she described this like the convergent zone. Everything I've experienced from childhood, swimming was a huge part of my life through college, my huge career at Nordstrom, which was, like I said, by accident. And then just that massive fall from grace that was so unexpected. And then a reinvention to being an entrepreneur. And so I think for me now, being an author, there's a little bit, I'd be lying if I didn't tell you I had major imposter syndrome multiple times throughout this process. Like I'd wake up in the middle of the night or be out on a dog walk, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, is my story really compelling? Do I really have great lessons to share? Is this worth reading and sharing and this and that? And I really would check myself and go through a Rolodex of many, many potential people that could also be doing this. And I think what it came down to is, and why I feel so compelled is I'm not a celebrity. I'm no one, I'm not famous. I'm literally just any one of these people that are going to hopefully read it, and they're going to find some normal, relatable inspiration that they can apply. And so it's my attempt to really scale my inspiration, my story, so that more people realize they too have a great story. They too have great potential. They too can write their own rules. They can do they can do it their way and create a life they love. They don't have to follow some prescribed framework or notion or template that is being shown on Instagram or by some celebrity who might have a cook, a chef, and a personal trainer. It's none of that. And so that's really the impetus, and the goal is to try and touch more people and show that leading a life that you love and creating a legacy is, it's not that hard, but it's going to take some really deliberate choices.
Absolutely. And by the way, I think you do have a chef. No? Does Sam not
No.
cook too?
Oh, no, you know what? He cooked when the kids were little. But no, he would never be called a chef. My eldest daughter worked for a seafood company for the last several years, and she's kind of a self-taught, incredible cook. So if we had a chef, it would be when she gets a load of seafood and has to do recipe development in our kitchen.
Okay, so I'm down for that one. Just saying, next time, just call me. I will make it there
Yes,
just for that because it'd be
yes.
great. So I love your authenticity from one is off the charts, amazing. And I can say that there's lots of women that I've interviewed, but I've known your background story. I think that you had
Hmm.
just left Nordstrom's just when we had met,
Yes,
like so many
yes.
years ago. And this world of retirement was in your close, goal time frame,
Hmm.
and to see the evolution of how you've continued to reinvent yourself and now stepping into the role of author. And of course, that comes with, so much really, I'm going to say, Loretta, so much valuable information for women
Hmm.
because you really have done such a great job, even though you don't, I mean, you've got to see how great you made those decisions very intentionally, about choosing the right partner, making these decisions along the way. So you've built a really full life. And I think that's really valuable for the young women, like you said, in your demographic, which are trying to
Hmm.
figure out that next stage. And you
Yeah.
can only get to that stage by listening to the stories of other women. Like we learn from other women, good or bad, we
Yep.
learn from them. So I, see such value in what you're doing. And I can't even stop saying balance is bullshit because it really just does resonate. Like there is
Hmm.
imposter syndrome, and if you don't have imposter syndrome, that means that you're not growing. And so I'd like to
Right.
flip the switch on that one too, meaning
Yes.
imposter syndrome is actually not a bad thing. It's a good thing because if you don't feel a little bit kind of off,
Yes. I think you're
you're really
exactly
not.
right.
Do you agree?
Yeah. Yes. It's yeah, if you're not uncomfortable, typically you're not growing, you're not challenging yourself. Um, I could have probably, stuck with a couple keynote speeches, um, and things like that, and just mentored friends, kids, etc. But to take this leap to actually write a book, put it all on paper, and it's really vulnerable, it's really honest. Um, that definitely was. There's been, I mean, it's been 9 months, and there's been many months, many moments, I should say, of feeling uncomfortable. But the feedback I'm getting from some of the early readers, yourself included, is super affirming and humbling. And I hope it's really helpful. I hope that, those two couples that sat at my dining table, I hope I've inspired them that they can have a family. I mean, there'd be nothing greater. Literally, I have tears in my eyes thinking, like, if those two couples, in a year, 2 years, tell me they're going to have their first baby, I'm going to be like, oh my gosh.
And
Ah,
they're going to be like, we named it Loretta.
yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Just kidding. Just kidding. Okay, so Loretta, I want to dive in a little bit more about your mantra, balance is bullshit. Like I want to hear it
Hmm.
from you. It's not about equal time everywhere, but your alignment. So what on a daily basis does that alignment look like to you?
Um, so, it's funny. I'm such a believer in, the work hard, play hard. So, on a daily basis, I'm really routine. I'm a big believer in calendar management. And I write a chapter about balancing babies, billions, and boundaries. And it worked then when I had a $2 billion business and 3 kids under 4. And it's the same methodology I use today. So I use my calendar to plan my workouts, to plan, you know, dedicated time in the morning for meditation or spirituality, to plan a walk with my dog, whatever it is. I'm really, really disciplined about calendar for fitness, for downtime, time with friends, my family, etc. But then you know what, on the weekends, like the past 2 weekends, just let it rip. So, I mean, and that's balance. So, we had a day Saturday out on the boat with friends, drinking margaritas, playing pickleball, diving in the lake at 8:30, eating pizza late night. That's not part of my Monday through Friday normally, but that's what it's all about. So have fun, play hard, reel it back in. That's balance. If you
Mm.
think you're going to be like structured and like that all day long, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. No, that's not life. And that's
Mm.
not seizing opportunities. And so I think it's this um, tug of war between being structured, but being spontaneous so that you're enjoying life, you're being present, but you're also disciplined so that you feel good. That's really
Mm.
what it's about for me.
I subscribe to the work hard, play hard too, but I subscribe to that work first and then I can play. Like that was ingrained in me since a kid. I can't
Hmm.
play before I get my work done. So
Yeah.
that's the German bringing with
Yes.
me. I mean, my family is very disciplined. So it's like work hard, play hard, and I do both
Yeah.
really well.
Yeah. I'd say the other thing for me is my values are so clear, and I don't let much get in the way. Um, Family is primary. Um, so Sam and I spend, if our kids are around, 90% of our time with our kids. And we're lucky they're home this summer. Just about every single night, there's some version of a family dinner. And it's chicken on the grill and a little bit of zucchini on the grill if you're lucky. Or last night, it's, you know, chicken breast, chicken thighs, a Greek salad, and leftovers for whomever's coming in late. But that's really huge for us. And so if we have the opportunity to choose between something else and our family, 9 times out of 10, we're going to choose our family. We're lucky that all 5 of us, it's our favorite people to be with. So it's kind of mutual, but it's also been really intentional from the time they were little. Um, I think I write a little bit in my book. I was just kind of scanning a few things over the weekend, and people ask sometimes, gosh, you guys have so much fun. How did you do it? Or you guys look like you really enjoy being together. And I think I write something in my book that it's not by accident. We didn't wing it. It was super intentional. A friend of mine, when our kids were little, said something that always stuck with me. It's the more time you spend with your kids, the more time you want to spend with your kids. Because the more time you spend with them, and in part behavioral expectations, and they're getting positive attention, not negative attention, the more you see them develop the more they want to be with you, and then the more you want to be with them. So it's no mystery why, as three grown adults, 20, 22, 24, they want to be around each other and us as much as possible. So
Mm.
um, things like that, I feel like that's my version of really living with intention and really living out the values. People can say, you know, family's important, but then the only time they spend is at Christmas holiday. Um, we definitely index to the other extreme as much as we possibly can, but it's our favorite people to be with.
Beautiful. Well, I can't wait till they actually get to hear this podcast because I think that's really,
Oh,
I think it's going to be very meaningful to them, even though they know it, just hearing it
yeah,
out loud and how
same.
proud you are of that. Like, I think you've done a phenomenal job. I remember the human pyramids.
Oh, yes.
Like, you were the only family that I met that I've ever met that literally use each other to support each other, literally and
Oh,
figuratively. So that human pyramid
oh, that
is,
is, I love that, Monica. I actually haven't thought of it that way, but what's so interesting is over the years, the the bigger ones with even another family or two, it's the who's on the bottom and who's on the top has changed. So our little Ashley, our youngest, who was just tiny when you met her, and she was kind of the flyer on top, and I or Sam might have been on the bottom. she's she's a huge foundational part of our family. Like the four of us, we all agree collectively we could not live without her. She just gets shit done. She works hard, she plays hard, she's smart, she's capable, she's wise, she's loyal. Declan and I, my eldest and I, were just talking about her yesterday. So it's funny you say that. It's like she used to be the one that we would all hold up because she was so little. She literally keeps us all together now.
oh my God, I love it. I love it. Yeah, that pyramid was pretty high. And if
Yeah.
luckily there was sand.
So good.
So, okay, so this has been a great podcast so far. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. I do have some more questions, some big ones. I guess, this is the Woman of Inspiration podcast, and we're all about celebrating the achievements of women.
Mhm.
And you're definitely, a woman that is deserving of that celebration. So we're
Thank
here to do
you.
that for you. But I would love to hear from you, you know, throughout your career, were you the type of woman that would celebrate those milestones and achievements? And if you did, like, when did you celebrate? Were you a milestone celebrator or did you wait for the big ones? Like, why is it so important to celebrate the achievements of women?
Oh, I think every chance you get, and I think that the small ones are almost as meaningful, sometimes more than the big ones. Um, Fortunately, growing up in the Nordstrom culture, there is a huge culture of recognition. And so from practically day one, you become part of a celebratory recognition culture that every month you can get recognized, every quarter you're recognized, every year you're recognized. So it's a huge goal to be one of those people that's recognized. And it could be performance, it could be camaraderie, it could be service. So then when you assume a leadership role, it's so gratifying to be able to reward people. There's another thing I write about in my book when it comes to leadership. And sometimes leadership development can be slow and arduous. And in many cases, doing the work yourself would be easier and faster, but that's not the point. Developing leaders sometimes can take time, just as it is with kids. And so there was a woman who worked for me, and she would come in to have me sign off on her orders. And every time she came in, I'd be like, Monica, nope, I need three more things answered. She'd come back with color coded Excel spreadsheets and paper clips and all ready for me to sign off on the orders. Monica, go back. I need these three more things answered. And then by the third or fourth time she came in, I would sign off on the order. And the point was, I could have told her what to do after the first session, but
Mm,
it was teaching her how to sync and how to really be thorough in her process. And I'll never forget the end of that particular quarter, being able to recognize her as my stellar performer. And I thought, here was someone that was struggling that I took from the bottom of my team, and then I was able to reward her at the top.
yeah.
That was like one of the happiest awards. I mean, I still, 12 years later, still remember giving her that award.
Beautiful. Well, I hope that she's listening. You'll have to tag her in the post. And was her name Monica too?
No, I didn't
Oh, okay.
actually use
So
her name, but
you just
I
subbed
will.
in my name. I'm
I
like,
just
oh my
subbed in your
gosh.
name. Yeah, there's a couple people I wrote about, but I didn't use their exact name. One I did. A young man I mentored. I used his name.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I am excited for people to sort of open the covers and start reading and diving into it. It's going to be a fabulous read. I want to talk a little bit about, so we talked about the celebration piece, love, love, love. I encourage every single woman, and it's a step into that spotlight is a little bit uncomfortable for some. How is that for you? Have you?
Um, I don't love that spotlight. I appreciate um like I'll never forget getting awards from my peers when they voted amongst each other and awarded me. That I think almost felt better than anything else. Um, to get the respect of people I respected so highly. Um, I'm competitive, so if I win an award for winning a race, loved that. But to be in the spotlight for the sake of it, I don't love that. I'm not shy about it, but I would rather spotlight on somebody else.
Hmm, interesting. Well, we're going to shine the spotlight on you on this one. And I always say that if we don't shine the spotlight on you, nobody else is going to do the
Yes,
same.
it's so true.
So you got to get used to that spotlight
Right.
on you. And it doesn't mean that we're like better than anybody else, but it just means that they can learn from you, right? And
Yep.
the more that we can put ourselves out there into the spotlight, the more that we can lift others up around us. It's just the way women learn, which
Hmm.
is what I've learned so much. And you're such a great leader. Like your stories are incredible. Um, you know, I would love to tap into, and this is one of you talk about in your memoir about some practical tools. And so I would like to talk about some of those practical tools and what sort of exercise that you might have. You talk about mindset
Hmm.
that have made the biggest impact with your clients. Maybe you can share that with us.
Yeah, the practical tools, the first one that comes to mind is morning meditation. Um, and the practical tool is the 5 minute journal. So it's the 5 minute journal that's exactly what it's called. If you Googled it, that's what you'll find. I've gifted this to so many people. I'm not a journaler by nature. I'm not like I'm not a prolific writer like that, just free form in the morning at all. But when I found this 5 minute journal, it literally takes less than 5 minutes and it's three things to start your day. What are you grateful for? Three things before you have your coffee, before you do anything else. What are three things you're grateful for? What three things would make a great day? I mean, it can be a successful podcast with Monica, a strong swim, healthy meals. It's not rocket science. It's just setting yourself up. And then what's an affirmation? I'm healthy, I'm strong, I'm humble, I'm happy. And the whole thing literally takes less than 5 minutes. I go through it. For me, and I encourage my kind of clients, friends to do this, is kind of commit that to your memory first thing, and you'll be surprised before you dive. For me, before I dive in the pool, I'm like, wait, I told myself a great day was going to be if I had a strong swim. I'm going to give it my all. It's just signaling to yourself you are your best supporter, your best critic, your
Mm.
best doubter. your best, like lift you up, go get them person. So I'd say that's a real easy tactic to start your day with. I liken it to starting your day on your toes, ready to kind of like go get the day. I'm ready versus on your heels. Um, I'd say another tactic I believe in is doing 10 minutes. It can be with the Waking Up app. It can be reading the Daily Word, which is spirituality for me. But whatever you do, it could even just be sitting in silence for 10 minutes, set a timer. Don't look at your email, social media, anything. That's like actually like having an onslaught into your home, into your bedroom while you're in your pajamas, in your bathrobe, before you even had a cup of coffee. For some, that's easier said than done, but I think that those are like the two like really important things that I try and share and impart and encourage people to do. Because if you start your day on your toes and well and in support of yourself, chances are really high you're going to actually have a great day.
Beautiful. Those are some really great tips. Thank you so much for sharing. I know that
Yeah.
I'm a I love the gratitude piece. I do that. I'm not going to say I do that every day, but I'm as intentional as I possibly can because
Mhm.
I still find that really hard. I'm like, but I just was grateful about that yesterday. I'm still
You know
grateful
what?
about that today. So sometimes I want to
Oh,
repeat the same thing, but
oh,
I'm
me
like, oh, I
too.
really need to
No,
say a different thing. And
me
so I'm
too.
like, oh, forget
Sometimes,
it. I'll just skip it because I'm already grateful.
no, exactly. No, sometimes I open it up and I look out the window and I'm like, huh, I'm grateful for Sam. I mean, I'm grateful for my hot cup of coffee. I mean, but you know what? I think it's just the symbolism of pausing. And you know what? It's okay to be grateful for the simplest things. I
Mm,
mean, a beautiful cup of coffee in your own home is really awesome if you've just had like a Keurig pod in a hotel that tasted like crap. So it's okay to be grateful for simple things. It's all building blocks. Like, yeah, I think so. I'm with you though. Sometimes it's like, I don't know, I'm grateful for looking out the window.
yeah, I'm so grateful to have to mow this lawn because I have a lawn to mow.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's the point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Super, super great. So wrapping up here, if you could go back and give one piece of advice to during a challenging time, what would that be?
Oh my gosh, I think it would be to trust the universe that when things feel like they're falling apart, they're out of control, that you're crumbling. You're not. You're not. You just have to actually have faith in the universe that something will happen. And a lot of times it's not on your timeline.
Mm, trust the universe.
Trust the
Hallelujah.
universe. Just stay calm. Just things have a way of working themselves out. And who knows
Mm,
when, yeah, who knows? It's just, I think it's hard to stay patient, hard to stay calm. That's probably the biggest challenge. Um, but usually those really tough valleys lead to something good that is really unbeknownst at the time.
beautiful. I'm a full believer of surrendering to the universe, and that is a really lovely way to end our podcast without one final question. And it wouldn't be a Woman of Inspiration podcast without asking your definition of what a woman of inspiration is to you.
Gosh, a woman of inspiration to me is someone that is humble, curious, courageous, and shows up for other women anytime, anywhere, anyhow. I think that we all just need to keep doing that as much as possible. We're stronger together. There's no reason why we should be trying to outdo one another. If we can hold hands and lift each other up, the world is going to be a better place.
Beautiful. Very, very well said. And I'm going to say what I find so interesting is that when I ask that question, when I kind of look at the person who I'm asking the question, the definition, it's almost like a mirror. And
Oh,
so,
wow.
right, it is really
Yeah.
interesting because you are that person.
Mm,
Like that's the way
thank
I
you.
see you, actually. So you are a woman of inspiration who lead, inspire, motivate. Loretta, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the Woman of Inspiration podcast. Thank you so much for sharing authentically about the behind the scenes, a little bit of a sizzle to your upcoming book, Balance is Bullshit. I love saying that, by the way.
Mhm.
And
Good.
I look forward to, the book launch and the next conversations and just watching you soar and absorbing all of that spotlight. So, anything else that you want to leave our guests with before we end?
No, just looking forward to getting that book out in the hands of anyone and everyone on September 2nd, and you'll be able to find it on Amazon.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And is there other places to find you? I know you're on LinkedIn. Can they stalk
Yeah.
you on LinkedIn?
Of course. Yeah, I'd love that. I'm on LinkedIn. My name just Loretta Soffe. I'm also on Instagram at Loretta Soffe, and soon to hopefully be a little more active on YouTube. And then I have a personal website that is lorettasoffe.com.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Loretta, and thank you to those who are listening today. I hope your bucket is overflowing with wealth and knowledge that Loretta has shared with us today. And if you did enjoy this episode, of course, we say share it widely with absolutely everybody you
Mhm.
know, and subscribe to the Woman of Inspiration podcast. So thank you so much, Loretta,
Thank
and
you.
thank you for being such an inspiration. We'll talk soon.
Okay. Thank you.